good morning, everyone. Hey, it is Tonni Lea TV time again, and I am Tonni Lea, your host. And I have a special guest today. I met her at my Sticker Shock Speaking Academy last month, and she's just an amazing lady that I just love. And we connected in so many ways. Lisa Charles. Lisa Charles is a federal prosecutor, and she has turned into a singing actress, wellness expert, and a certified health coach. She is also an acclaimed speaker. She has served as the Fitness Wellness Research Coordinator for the Rutgers University, Aging and Brain Health Alliance, and the CEO of Embrace Your Fitness, and the author of Yes, Commit, and Do Live. She is an amazing lady, and she is all about yes, all about having you commit and doing it to the best of your ability. Please welcome Lisa Charles. Lisa, I
Oh,
am so honored and so glad to have you. Did I get that all right or did I mess it all up?
oh my gosh, could you have not gotten it more right? I am so humbled and I really am really thrilled to be here with you. You mentioned that we made a connection and it was a real connection. So this is just
Yes.
a continuation.
I know it is. It's just so wonderful when you make those connections, right?
Yes, they don't always happen all the time. They're like beautiful jewels, and you gather all your beautiful rubies and jewels and diamonds, and you're definitely a diamond, Miss Tony.
Yes, you do. Yep. And you're just an amazing lady and you're so inspirational.
Thank
I,
you.
I loved meeting you, and I'm glad that it is not the end of our friendship. It is only the beginning.
Yeah, when sometimes you really, and I would say this to your audience members, sometimes you meet someone and it really is on you to follow the emotion. And when the emotion and the grounding says this is someone that is in your life, you take the steps, they'll take the steps, and you start to create a lasting relationship. And yeah, here we are.
I know, right? Yes, here we are.
Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about your prosecution days.
Oh my goodness. I would say it seems like a long time ago, but there are times when it seems like it was really kind of yesterday. And I think one of the things that we really connected on was just the kind of wonderful people that were going through strife, and you're meeting them at really what is a dark moment in their life. And your job is to really elevate the process for them, making it that this is something that can empower them. So I started my prosecution with rape and incest cases, domestic violence. And then I moved into organized crime and murder and arson and every kind of crime you could think. Miss Tony Lee, I've pretty much prosecuted it. And I did that until I really kind of felt a little burnt out and wanted to look at to what other things God had put in my spirit to pursue. I knew that there was something else, and I was open to the prospect of exploration and putting my right foot forward and trying things that for other people they might think like, okay, that's a little odd. How do you leave prosecution to singing and acting? But I will tell you honestly, it made complete sense to me at the time.
Yeah, and what songs have you been doing, and what acting have you done? And I know
Yeah.
that you've enjoyed it because you've got a smile on your face when you talk about it.
Oh, it's some of the most special times in my expression. I always feel like we have an opportunity to express the loves we have. And we have a certain amount of time that we're here. And for me, I had a chance to do a lot of jazz. So think of Ella Fitzgerald. I really kind of mirrored and followed a lot of what she sang and had my own style to it. I had little band that I used to sing with in jazz clubs. And then I loved gospel, Negro spirituals, and I'd done a one woman show called Music and Poetry. I traveled around New Jersey with it. And then I ended up singing opera. I met an opera singer. She trained me. And I did a concert at Carnegie Hall. So that was Uh, one of those moments in your life where you really see all what God can put as possibilities. Um, I suffered a vocal injury, and so that derailed that career for me. But you rightfully say, anytime I talk about that side of me, it was just an expression of a different way of helping people. It's like communicating through poetry, through words. I did a lot of plays, I did some television. But for me, it was always, what am I communicating, and what did I want other people to gather from it, to feel, to maybe realize something about themselves they didn't see, so they can maybe see themselves in a character. So my thought process was always, what can I give to other people?
Right. And it's all about the giving, right? It
Oh my goodness,
Yes,
yes.
it is. So when did you start in with the brain fit? I know,
Yeah.
that is big with you as well, to have
Yes.
a healthy brain. And I
Yes.
know that that probably had some to do with it, being in the prosecution and stuff too. And but what started that?
So it's kind of interesting because when I had this vocal injury, and actually I ended up being hospitalized for a short period of time. I had a really bad infection, and I I remember just looking up, those like fluorescent lights that are in the hospital. There was very lonely rooms.
Yes.
And I was really trying to figure out what was the next steps in my life. And um, what came to me very clearly is that I didn't have to know every step in my life. I just needed to take a step. So I started really just taking care of myself better, eating better, moving more. And I found this absolute love of wellness and fitness. And I went into it full out, Tony. I became a wellness coach, a trainer, any and everything that was in fitness and wellness. And I got a tab. I started my business, and about, I'm going to say, 6 years into what I was doing, training a lot in the hospital system, doing training programs, doing lunch and learns, I got a tap on the shoulder from someone who had met me 3 years prior to tapping me on the shoulder to ask me if I had an interest in going to Rutgers University and running their fitness wellness component of their studies that was looking at why African Americans were twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's and dementia. And so they had a study which was based on, what if we gave exercise classes? Could we see a difference in the brain in the pre joining the classes and post joining the classes? And one, it was fascinating to me to know and to figure out all of the angles and all of the ways that we can take care of ourselves and our brains and our bodies. But there was a disconnect, Tony, between how the neurologists talk about it, the scientists, and how everyone else talks about it. So I really found that I would go to these symposiums and they would be talking about sleep. Some would be talking about breathing. They had a lot of other, components, many that we recognize, like nutrition and movement and socialization and testing the brain. But sleep is not something a lot of people talk about, or at least they don't talk about it as being one of the primary ways that you can stay healthy. They
No.
don't really value it as adults. We're actually kind of encouraged to sleep a little less, or we always kind of
Right.
wear it as a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't need sleep. I sleep 4 hours. So it really had me come up with this whole program of, can I really share the true components of how to really engage the brain, stay healthy in the brain and the body, and really give that idea that this is part of fitness. It's no different. It's not something I want you to look at as a side, item. This is something I want you to incorporate as you incorporate everything else. And, honestly, that was really what was behind the programs that I created. I stayed at Rutgers for 3 years, had an opportunity to really work in depth with a lot of the scientists there, and really gain a scientific understanding behind everything, that I could mix with what I understood from fitness. So hence came, the book that I wrote, and hence came, the programs that I put together to kind of give a different way of looking at things.
So what are some of the benefits that you found with the sleep? You know, because this is the 12 steps in healing, and you know, when we talk about healing, it includes everything, and I think probably more so the mind than anything. So what did you discover while you did that?
Well, what's really interesting, Tony, is that it is the only time in sleep, and it's in the fourth between the fourth and third cycles, the four cycles of sleep, that your brain and your body can release all of the toxins, all of the, for want of a better word, it's really the trash and garbage that builds up in your
Mhm.
cells. It is the only time that it can truly release that. And also, it is the only time that you can really engage in that muscle building and bone building. And so, if you don't hit the last parts and stages of sleep several times during the night, you're really missing the opportunity to cleanse your body. And so, what happens, even in a person that says, "Oh, I feel fine," or "I don't need," you have, really these tangles and things that start to accumulate in the brain, for instance. And it takes a very long time to accumulate. And then at the time when it starts to become a problem, well, you have so much that's accumulated. And as things accumulate in the cells, there's also a disconnect between one side of the brain communicating to the other. And so you start to find yourself with real problems. I don't think anyone ever explained sleep that way to me. They would say
No.
sleep is good for you. They'd say get your hours of sleep, but they never explained that if I don't get it, I'm setting myself up as I go older and maybe not so old to really have some very negative implications. Sleep is also the only time you can reset, the body to really understand, oh, okay, it's time to eat, or it's time not to eat, or it's really time to sleep, or it's rest. It is the perfect time for the communication to really happen in the body. And it's the time for when you take in thoughts for them to actually become a part of you. So we take in our environment, but it's when we sleep that we store it in a different part of our brain. So you're missing all these components and a strong negative health implication. Um, just made me really passionate because I didn't hear anyone talk to me about it in that direction. And there's a lot of hours of sleep that adults need. If I asked you, Tony, how many hours of sleep do you need a day? What'd you say? Do you know?
I know that we're supposed to have at least 8 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so seven
And
to
I think the
nine.
older we get, the more time that we're supposed to have, actually, right?
Yeah, so a lot of people think, and that's great. And of course, I would know that you would know because you're in the healing side of things. But a lot of people think that I need less. They think, oh, I'm older, so I
No.
need less. And you actually need that same 7 to 9 that can really give you that restorative side of it. And if you think about it, as women, we're combating losing bone, we're combating losing muscle.
Yep.
So if you're not sleeping at the time when all the growth can take place, now you're losing and you're not even replacing. So it becomes even more critical that we really take care of ourselves. And I think our conversations were all about how do we bring true healing to people? And this is
Mhm.
just one of the components of it.
Yeah, you know, and that is just amazing, Lisa, because I have never heard anyone explain sleep to be so important as you just did.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, I know that you have to get the sleep to renew the mind and, you know, and the body and stuff, but I had no idea that it was a time when the toxins were able to leave at that, because you talk about, you know, stress, and we all deal with stress and what it does to our bodies and stuff, but I have never heard it explained that way before.
Well, I think
Absolutely amazing.
thank you for the platform for this. So anyone that's listening, maybe they take it a little more serious. And that's one
Mhm.
of the components that I love as a coach. Got dubbed the sleep whisperer because I'm gonna help you to find your pathway to restorative sleep and utilizing that as anything else you get coached on to make sure that you are really on the proper path for enhancing your health.
Right. And that is so important, especially for people that have suffered, you know, stress or, you know, being rejected, being abandoned, being sexually abused, being abused. neglect any of that because it does. It affects the mind so much. And so here we are talking about the mind and the ability that sleep does for us. I would
Yeah,
have
I
never,
mean,
yeah.
I love that you mentioned, we live in a society where it is highly stressed, and that's
Hmm.
in the present, but you added the component of memories that you have from things that may have happened in the past that were never resolved. And that can live in you, live in your cells. You
Yep.
can bury it, but you can't, that's not the way to really deal with it. You
No.
just put it down. And as a matter of fact, that just adds to the stress levels, inflammation in the system, and all of those things that we talked about that needs to be released from cells. So I think, it's almost like looking at that one element as another crucial part of the overall plan of healing. There's just so many people that are in pain
Hmm.
and they really need a road forward.
Yes.
I think that's why we so connected, and I feel like I've seen people at different stages, either as a prosecutor, talking, and of course I wasn't a coach then, but my job was to help their process into the court not be another trauma, and but an empowering moment. But listening to people and seeing how they process what has happened, how they process their lives as it relates to events. That time is no different than the times we live because people have so much that they are attempting to process. And it's wonderful when they have programs to know that they don't have to do that alone. They don't have to be alone. And half those things are very difficult to do by yourself. So
Absolutely.
to have a team of people that can really, take you to another level, the level that you deserve,
That's
you're
right.
worthy of. This is the path that you were supposed to be on, the loving path that says that you can be the best of what you can be.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, if we could just get that out there to people, because there are so many that walk that journey alone. And I started to myself. And then I was able to find, of course, for me, it was Dr. Doug Weiss and the 12 steps, because it changed my life completely just to know that there was someone else that felt, the same way that I did, or went through something that was similar. I mean, we don't all go through the exact same thing, but to know that there's someone else out there that has went down that same journey, oh my goodness, it is so supportive and it is empowering as well, you know.
Isn't it the worst thing to feel that you stand alone?
Oh gosh,
When
it's
you feel
horrible.
like you stand alone, there's other things you start to tell yourself. And those things are the things that can trap you
Yes.
in aspects of your life. It's interesting. You said too that the traumas that people experience, um, you know, is their trauma. And so someone else, and sometimes they'll think, or a person will say, well, it's not as bad as that. So, they'll minimize what their trauma is. It's just another way of avoidance and not dealing.
Yeah.
Um, but when you can find, like you said, the connection, and I remember when we were speaking, one of the things that stood out to me that I always really applaud with myself and with my clients or with anyone that I know is when people can have what is happened to them and start to see themselves not as just a byproduct of something that happened, but that happened in the course of their life, and it's prepared them for this next stage of their life. Because Tony, would you be here sharing in the ways that you share and giving in the ways that you give had your path been different?
No,
Well,
no.
you know, we are
Everything
our
was led
paths.
up to today. Yep.
We are our paths. And,
Absolutely.
when we can honor that, I feel like it's empowering
Mm-hmm.
for us to honor that and,
Absolutely.
you know, be so forward and front with it. Um, and this is for me, I think we share just the passion of healing and the
Mhm.
passion of empowerment. So
Exactly.
I
Yes.
always feel like if I can get someone to realize that either through training their breath and understanding that, wow, I have the power to really shift the mindset myself, with no one else. I can do it in the quiet or, you know, guiding through meditation and nature, the beautiful picture that you have up here. There's something about flowers and nature and air and trees and things that do things for us.
Hmm.
And it's just beautiful when people get that little light bulb in their heads that they don't have to live in darkness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because you talked about walking alone, and that's how I felt when I started walking the journey after the second divorce, from the person, because it led me to the moment of I was done. There was no light at the end of my tunnel whatsoever, and I was completely done.
And
And
it's
it was
scary.
only, yeah, and it is. And there are so many people that are there or have traveled that place, and you don't have to. There is no reason in the world that we have to. But sometimes we feel so ashamed that we can't reach out to someone anymore, because, oh, we should have done it this way, or we shouldn't have done that, or we should have, and I felt that too, because everybody said, oh, it'll never last, he'll never change, he'll never change, you know.
It,
And
right.
okay, they were right. But the reason I stayed was because God said, stand back and watch what I'm going to do. Didn't know it wasn't about that person, that it was completely everything was about me and what He
Yeah.
was preparing me for. Didn't know that at the time. I do now,
Right.
but I felt like I was walking alone. And then to find that there are other people that have traveled the same thing, or, went through something similar, just, you know, and to know that they're there for me. It's just we have to be the ones to reach out, because there are people out there that are so willing to walk with you through that journey.
Exactly. And they're just, some people are just waiting for a word.
Hmm.
Some people just want to hear, when people are, I won't even talk about it, like it you or myself, certain things that um, happened um, in my journey. And I would share with you, we lost our first child as a baby. And it was many years I never talked about it. And I had a lot of shame behind it. I had a lot of guilt behind it. I had a lot of just deep sadness, but you feel like you're alone. It's like you make a cocoon in a bubble, and then you go, you try to live and you're doing your thing. And I think for me, it was just that idea. The more I opened up, the more I saw there were so many other people that had the exact same
Yeah.
kind of trauma, situation, thought process. And the commonality is whatever it is, what we do or what can do if we're not careful is we get trapped in the negative thought loop
Hmm.
that keeps us down, saying things about or the situation about yourself or whatever. Um, and one of the things that I think as coaches I really love is to be able to unlock that for people, because I can see it and I can see what it can do to dampen a spirit. And it's exciting. It will never be anything less than miraculous and exciting when the spirit leads you to help other people to find that peace.
Absolutely. And it's true, because God leads us to those people too.
Yes.
All we
Yes.
have to do is just start opening our mouth and talking to them. And
Yes.
then we find out, oh, that's why I'm connected with you. That's why we connected. And it's just like, and I tell in my story about hiding the abortion for so many years, 30 years. It was never talked about, never. And man, did it destroy the inside of me for a long time. And
Yeah.
now I have met so many people, sadly, that have, went through the exact same thing, but they're on the road of recovery.
Exactly. You
Yes.
shine a light. I always say with anything, When you bury it, it has all the power. When you don't speak of it, it has more power than you ever knew because it can come out at any moment and take you completely over and lead you down paths or thought processes that you maybe thought were in the past. Maybe you didn't even think about it for a while, but it can come up like a snake in a second. But once you shine the light on it, and once you start to dissect it, once you start to share it, and once you start to figure out all the untruths you tell yourself, because we tell ourselves things that have no truth to them whatsoever,
Right.
you start to open up that pathway to hope and to faith and to understanding and to relationship, because we're not meant to travel this world alone
Mhm.
anyway. And suddenly it's like, oh, okay, that's the bridge to hope. That's what I was missing. That's what I need. um, but you do have to shine that light, where the light shines, darkness cannot thrive.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Yes, and then once you do shine the light on it, no matter what other people think, no matter what other people
yeah,
say, it's all about what God says about you and the fact that His grace and His mercy covers you. It covered me for those 30 years, and I had no idea. It
yeah,
does. Yeah.
protected. You were protected. You
Yeah.
were loved. You were never alone
No.
at the darkest moments. And I think when we come upon the nuggets of knowledge when we're ready, when
Hmm.
God opens it for us to know in that way. But when you have that opportunity of reflection and say, wow, I felt that way then, but now I can see the picture. I can see what God was doing and working for all good for
Hmm.
me. And because I trust it, I am here in this part of the journey. And it never stops. I mean, the things and the tools that we give as coaches is because life doesn't stop and
That's
things
right.
can happen. And I'm always really excited to show people that resilience button and how you build it, because resilience is an easy word to say, but it comes with you really doing the work from the inside out, your spiritual work, your understanding of gifts and talents, everything that you have on the table, and then you really understanding that broader part of life, that things can happen, but it doesn't mean that it's you're bad, that's bad, this is bad. It's just, how do I carry myself in those moments? Do I stay in my faith? Do I stay with my hope? Do I stay connected? I feel like those are the key things to keep your strength. Makes me really happy when I think about some of that, because we all have those strifes and terminations. But if we can find that way of finding the brilliance and being present and finding that light and following it at all times, it's just what is it? The peace that surpasses all understanding will flow
Hmm.
from you.
Hmm. Guard your heart and mind. Yes,
Mm,
absolutely. And it's amazing how one piece fits into another piece and they all work together: body, mind, soul, spirit, the whole thing. Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you said that, because don't avoid any one of those pieces. You were given all those pieces, so you need
They
to
do.
take care of all
Yeah.
those pieces, right?
Well, yeah, because we're made up of all of those pieces.
Yes.
So, if we avoid taking care of the face, but we take care of everything else, then pretty quick, the face is going to get broke out and it's going to have all
Yes.
these wrinkles and all of that, but the rest of us is going to look good, right?
Right.
So, I
Exactly.
mean, it's just the same thing with everything, every other part of us. So, well, I'm going to leave the last few minutes and I'm going to let you just talk to our audience and I'm going to let you encourage them.
Oh, thanks, Tony. When you're on certain, given a certain opportunity, and to me, this is an amazing opportunity for healing, for love, and for messages that can really uplift. And I want everyone to know that you have the power inside, and that some of the things, it's not about knowing this special term or this one particular book or something. It's really knowing the things that are going to keep you strong. And so I'm going to say that you want to live in love. You want to love your neighbors. You love yourself. That means you have to love your neighbor and yourself. That you got to love both. And that means that you have to take time to nurture that. And I want to give you a hope of freedom because you have a pathway to free your mind. And you don't have to do it alone. Free your mind of fears and of negative thoughts. And finally, I'll say the power that has been lies inside. Don't let it lie dormant. Please take the step. The program that I have, a couple of programs. So I have one that's just called Just One Step. Just take one step, and whatever that is, take it towards that love, towards that freedom, towards that power, and you will be surprised at what can be in store for you.
Absolutely. It just takes that step. We got to
Yes.
do it. Oh, Lisa, I am so honored that you took me up on my invitation, and what a remarkable inspiration you are. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I
Oh,
really think of your audience as my family, and anyone that goes on my website or reaches out to me, I will have a free gift about sleep for you. I want to, shower you as Tony has showered me with friendship. I want to shower you with things that'll take you to the next stages on your journey.
awesome. Oh, thank you, Lisa, so very much.
Thank you, Tony.
Oh, well, here you have it. So now we know, family, that sleep is so important. So I would so encourage you to get in touch with Lisa on that one. Well, thank you, Lisa, for an awesome interview, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.